The Battle of the Atlantic, a brutal, protracted struggle where victory hung by a thread. This isn't just about ships and torpedoes. It's about the unsung heroes who cracked the uncrackable, the ingenious minds behind the tech, and the pivotal moments that ensured the US Navy's decisive triumph over Nazi U-boats. 19 March, 1943 North Atlantic Mid-Ocean Air Gap, convoys HX-229 and SC-122 versus multiple U-boat Wolfpacks, Raubgraf, Stürmer Drenger, BDU, Großadmiral Karl Dönitz. Western approaches Admiral Sir Max Horton. Night. Cold wind blows hard over black water. Merchantmen in 2 convoys move in rigid columns, lanterns doused smoke thin to hide their trail. Somewhere out there, periscopes, diesel fumes, patient eyes. A voice in a U-boat control room whispers numbers. Bearing, range, speed. The captain nods once. Tubes flood. The boat rises to periscope depth. A destroyer passes in silhouette. Then, the order, fire. Torpedoes hit like iron hammers. A Liberty ship breaks bows, raising screws, screaming in air, then gone. Another ship burns tanker flames, climbing into the low cloud. The Escort's pivot searchlights off Aztec ping rolling across the swell. Men on the convoy decks hold their breath and listen. Somewhere astern, a corvette throws a pattern. 5 charges, then 10 water hills, rising shock waves, rattling bulkheads. The U-boat slips under, slides away, and calls its pack. This is the crisis point of the Atlantic War. The first happy time in 1940-1941 had already taught London hard lessons. The second, off the American coast in early 1942, had bled tankers under city lights. By the spring of 1943, the U-boat arm is larger, trained and coordinated by Bédard U from Kerneval, near Lorient. Wolfpacks with radio discipline mass on convoy routes. The mid-ocean air gap, no land-based cover, no quick air response, is their hunting preserve. Britain counts food in weeks, aviation fuel in days, escorts in single digits per route. If the lifeline snaps, no build-up, no bombers, no return to Europe. Every keel matters. Why are the U-boats so effective? Here, German doctrine is built for it. Daytime submerged night surface attack against the column's diesel speed, low silhouettes, blacked-out seas. Hydrophones listen through the hull. Lookouts feel wind shifts on their faces. TDC solutions are drilled until muscle memory. Commanders share experience in BDU war diaries. The Type 7 small, reliable, quick to dive is the standard killer. Longer range Type I boats push out to the mid-Atlantic lanes. METOX radar warning sets give a few seconds of life when a distant aircraft stares at them, and the Atlantic is very large. The escorts are brave but thin. A few destroyers and corvettes ride herd on tens of ships. Fuel is tight, crews are young, weather is the enemy as much as any torpedo. Aztec early sonar is a line in the dark, true only when a boat is under and slow. Lose contact in a squall and the sea swallows the echo. Speed kills search push too fast and the dome sings useless noise. The convoy commander must choose every minute, stay close or sprint after a contact, shield the columns or chase the shadow. The cost mounts. In 1942 alone, Allied losses spike into the millions of tons. Tankers from the Caribbean ore ships out of Freetown, freighters from Halifax and New York, each one contains a factory shift of war. A ship the size of a city block carries aircraft parts 105 millimeters, shells, medical kits, radios, tinned meat, letters from home. When it goes down, 100 stories end in cold water. The math is brutal, and the U-boat force understands math. Now zoom in on the battle that anchors this moment, HX-229 and SC-122. 2 convoys spread by weather and luck crossed by multiple packs. Attacks fall on them across nights and days. Escort commanders fight exhaustion and fog-shifting box formations launching star shells only when they dare. Signallers crackle reports through static to western approaches at Liverpool. Admiral Horton pushes extra ships, improvises groups, but the ocean is wide and time is short. Every kill claimed by a U-boat captain is a line in a staff plot that points to a single truth. Unless something changes, the lifeline will not hold. And yet, even in this darkness, the counterweight is building. Convoy discipline has improved since 1940. New corvettes and frigates arrive designed for this exact job. Long-range aircraft creep farther out with auxiliary fuel. Depth charge patterns are tighter pistols better set. Merchantmen drill emergency turns and smoke. DF sets on escorts triangulate U-boat radio bursts to rough bearings. A few hunter-escort combinations experiment with more aggressive screens. Pilot reports from the edges of the gap hint that the ocean will not always belong to the night. But tonight it still does. A freighter's master stares at a dim horizon and thinks of Bristol Channel tugs and dockyard cranes if he can only reach them. A U-boat petty officer counts seconds between explosions and whispers a prayer to machinery that must not fail. On the destroyer bridge, a young lieutenant watches his captain's face in the rain and waits for a single word: attack. The title promises a pivot. Germany taunts America's escort carriers, then the Wolfpacks are destroyed. That pivot has not arrived yet. The terror must be understood before the turn can be earned. The men who will later fly Avengers from short decks and the sailors who will aim ahead throwing mortars are still moving into place. In the spring of 1943, the Atlantic is a knife fight in black water. Every new tool, every decrypt, every ton of steel must cross this space. Steel groans. A siren wails. Another plume rises on the horizon. The convoy swings columns, bending like a school of fish under attack. In the radio room of a corvette, a pencil scratches a position report that will be read by men ashore who are assembling a different answer. An answer the U-boat arm will not expect. An answer that will ride on small decks and hunt forward, not backward. Hold the frame here. In the cold, the spray, the fear. Because the only way to measure the coming shift is to feel how close the line came to breaking. 30 October, 1942, Eastern Mediterranean, off Nile Delta, HMS Petard versus U-559 boarding party. Lieutenant Anthony Fasson, RN A.B. Colin Grazier, signalman, Tommy Brown, Admiralty OIC Submarine Tracking Room Roger Wynne. Bletchley Park, Hut 8, Alan Turing Hugh Alexander. Night sea running short and steep. A wolf without a pack staggers on the surface, holed and hunted. U-559. Depth charges have broken her back. HMS Petard closes in engines shuddering. Flares hiss down. The German crew abandons ship. The boat bobs stubborn, still afloat. Petard launches a whaler. 3 men jump to the U-boat's casing, then drop through the conning tower hatch into black water and diesel stink. They know what they are after. Not glory. Not prisoners. Paper. Hands tear through a radio room. Key lists. Kurzsignale. Wetterkurzschlussel. The clock runs fast inside a sinking hull. Water licks ankles, then knees. Fasson and Grazier shove documents up to Brown and shout once to go. Brown climbs. The sea takes the others. The papers live. Derby House, Liverpool. The OIC submarine tracking room pins lines across the Atlantic. Bearings from HFDF huff-duff drop like nails into a chart. Each burst of BDU traffic gives a sliver of position. With the U-559 captures and other hauls, Hut 8 at Bletchley Park reads the naval M4 net again after its long blackout. The 4-rotor change in early 1942, the shark key, had blinded them. Now, with keybooks and cribs with bommy runs stacked floor high, the lights come back on. Alan Turing shifts from method to method. Hugh Alexander steers Hut. 8 operators ride the machine. Room heat and messages open. Ultra flows. But ultra is not magic, it is discipline. A few words, then a silence. Convoy routes are tweaked in small angles. Escorts drift to positions that feel like luck. BDU orders pack dispositions, refueling instructions to milch cows. All read, all handled with gloves. Western Approach's command feeds only what an escort commander must know when he must know it. If a U-boat dies too neatly after a decrypt, Roger Wynne asks why. Cover stories are built. A Catalina happens to be in the area. A trawler happens to spot a periscope feather. Nothing must reveal the source. The Germans must feel hunted by steel and chance, not by mathematics. Germany fights back. BDU shortens signals. Radio discipline tightens. METOX receivers warn of aircraft using meter-band radar. Cipher nets split. Patrol lines drift unpredictably. A decoy transmission here, a false contact there. But the cavity magnetron is about to rewrite radar. Air-to-surface vessel Mark III slides to 10 centimeters wavelengths. METOX hears nothing. Coastal Command liberators lift off with smooth noses hiding new eyes. Their shadow falls farther into the mid-ocean gap each month. Reports are dry. One line. Sighted. Attacked. Possible kill. Behind that line is a boat blindsided under rain squalls by a radar return it did not believe existed. Bletchley Park runs hot through the winter and into spring 1943. Hut 4 translates naval decrypts. Hut 8 keeps pressure on the M4 key with Bombay schedules and crib dragnet. Admiralty signals officers package fragments into convoy decisions. A wrong inference costs ships. A right one saves them, and must look ordinary while doing so. 1,000 small choices, each made in minutes. The line between bold and noisy is thin. Horton in Liverpool wants U-boat packs met broken and left behind. He needs exact enough positions to push escorts forward, but not so exact that commanders forget the ocean still lies. On the water, the changes bite. A U-boat rises at night to attack and finds a corvette already angling in. Another slips down to periscope depth and feels a pattern hammer the layer it chose. A milch cow broadcasts a burst on a prearranged sked, and hours later, a very long-range liberator circles the rendezvous. The U-boat captain writes in his KTB that the enemy is everywhere at once. He is wrong. The enemy is only at a few points, exactly the right few, because somewhere inland a bomb spun, and a duty officer believed a thin line on a plotting board. The cat and mouse continues. BDU introduces Naxos to hear the new radars. Boats are told to dive deeper to surface, less to transmit shorter. The Allies answer with more aircraft tighter. HFDF baselines from escorts, new sonars with steadier beams, a discipline in convoy turns that denies the classic night surface approach. Destroyer leaders rehearse bait patterns. Corvettes learn to hold contact and handoff. Intelligence does not replace grit, it sharpens it. Through March 1943, the convoys still bleed. HX 229 and SC 122 remind everyone that nothing is solved yet. But decrypt rhythm improves. Routing shifts avoid arranged patrol lines by hours, not days. Pack ambushes fall on empty water. Escorts who take the risk to press contacts are rewarded more often than they are punished. The ocean feels slightly smaller to Allied eyes and much larger to German ones. Now the title's pivot grows visible on the horizon. Intelligence has given location. Radar has given eyes. What is needed is a way to carry those eyes with the convoy all the time, not only when a VLR aircraft can reach the gap. A small deck will do if it can launch the right machines. Avengers with depth bombs and torpedoes. Wildcats with guns and eyes. A ship that the German staff mocks as a toy carrier. A ship that will sit where the Wolfpacks choose to form and cut them open at the moment of assembly. Inside BDU staff notes compare sightings. Reports mention aircraft where none should be. The word Traeger carrier appears with disbelief. On American slips from Seattle to Pascagoula, short-hulled ships with flattops slide into water by the dozens. Their crews drill deck cycles under North Atlantic weather. Their air groups practice night radar approaches in sleet. They are not glamorous, they are inevitable. The pencil in the Corvette radio room from Section 1 scratches again. This time the message that leaves the set is shorter, cleaner, more confident. New orders are coming with it, not to flee but to hunt forward around the convoy. Somewhere downrange, a small flight deck turns into wind. 31 May 1000, 943 North Atlantic convoy lanes, and Bay of Biscay. Black May Western approaches Command Ad-M Sir Max Horton, USN escort carrier groups, centered on USS Bogue, USS Card, USS Core, RAF Coastal Command VLR Liberators and Sunderlands. The ocean starts to change shape. Not the waves, the geometry of contact. Where a U-boat once rose into darkness and surprise instruments reach for it first. A Catalina sweeps a sector a faint tick on a scope that would have been silent last year. 10-centimeter radar ASV Mach 3 looks past chaff and sea clutter and tells the crew to hold course 2 degrees right. Down below, the boat listens with metox for meter-band energy and hears nothing. It believes the night is safe. It is not. Light comes with the aircraft, a hard white circle smashing the dark, a ley light bloom. The pilot holds the beam steady, while depth charges walk a line across the predicted turn. If the boat dives fast enough, it avoids the pattern but dives into another net. Sonar sets grow steadier and sharper. The old Azdic cone is no longer a fragile line to be lost in speed and swell. Crews learn to keep contact through the turn, and to call bearings like a drumbeat. Contacts are not guesses now, they are traces to be prosecuted. A head throwing changes the logic entirely. Hedgehog arrives a spiked crown of contact-fused bombs, hurled in a tight oval ahead of the ship. No more thunder over the stern blind spot, no more rolling the dice on depth settings while losing contact in the danger wash. The Escort keeps the echo on the nose, throws the pattern and listens. A miss is silence. A hit is a single sickening crack, and the crew knows it. Squid follows later, with heavier charges, predictive fire control, a 3-salvo cadence that drives home kill probability. Each weapon turns hunting from art into repeatable drill. Air gets its homing weapon too. Merc, 24 FIDO, an acoustic torpedo, dropped by aircraft against a diving wake. It is not fast. It is smart enough. U-boat screws draw it like a moth to heat. The first reports are terse contact drop explosion, but the effect persuades. Boats cannot assume that a crash dive clears the board anymore. Every response grows a counter. The Germans add T5 GNAT acoustic torpedoes to snap at Escort screws. The Allies answer with Foxer-towed noisemakers that sing louder than a destroyer's prop and pull the hunters away from death. Measure-countermeasure doctrine shifts day by day. The small flight decks arrive in numbers. Escort carriers CVEs with workmanlike names and boxy silhouettes. Bogue, Card, Core, Santee. They are not fleet carriers. They do not need to be. Their air groups are tuned for one mission: find, fix and finish boats at the convoy's edge and at the pack's assembly points. Wildcats carry eyes and teeth. Avengers carry bombs, rockets and torpedoes. ASV sets right in their noses. Pilots drill into the worst weather on the planet to fly racetrack patterns that never quite end. Deck crews learn an ungentle ballet fuel arm launch, recover on a platform that heaves like a chest in a fever. Hunter-killer logic snaps into place. Instead of waiting tight within the convoy's ribs, an escort carrier group roams outward on ultra-cued patrol lines and huff-duff bearings. A burst from B to U triangulates to a box Avengers go. A shadow on radar where no land-based plane could be. Wildcats slide in to pin the contact, while the ship turns into wind. When a boat dives, sonobuoys drop like breadcrumb microphones and build a fence of ears. The kill is not always clean. It is often certain. Success looks statistical tonnage of U-boats per month because that is how the ocean registers change. Biscay becomes a gauntlet. U-boats must transit to and from their French pens. Lorient Street, Nazaire, Brest-la Palisse, through an air-sea screen that thickens each week. The bay was once a home shore. In 1943, it feels like open ground under enemy artillery. Sunderlands and Wellingtons drag ley lights over whitecaps. VLR liberators push far enough to meet the CVEs' outward arcs. Boats are forced to stay down longer, to snorkel later, to inch under at batteries' cost. A submerged U-boat is a blind pedestrian in traffic. It survives. It does not hunt well. The instruments do not replace men. They enlarge them. A corvette's Azdic operator, who once listened to whale song and thermal layers, now calls range and bearing with confidence, and the bridge trusts him. A petty officer on a flight deck reads wind over a short bow and waves a TBF into the catapult stroke with no room for error. A radio intelligence plotter chooses which of 5 bearings matters most, and a commander commits a day's radius of fuel on that judgment. Each choice is small and exact, and together they make the ocean unfair in the Allies' favour. Black May is the ledger turning red for the U-boat arm. Losses run high across the month, boats destroyed faster than crews can be trained to the old standard. FIDO pulls packs back, revises doctrine orders, boats to transmit less, to attack less often, to live longer. The initiative leaks away. It does not vanish. The Atlantic still kills the unwary, but the tone changes. The hunters feel hunted. Now the mocked platforms show their teeth. German staff assessments had laughed at the idea that small American escort carriers could matter in mid-ocean. Low speed, short decks, thin armour, easy targets. The CVEs answer by not playing the duel the staff imagined. They fight as systems: radar, radio bearings, aircraft sonobuoys, hedgehogs, and depth patterns linked by doctrine and habit. A pack forms, or tries to, and finds a patrol pattern overhead where there should be none. A boat creeps in on the surface at night and is spotted beyond human eyesight by a dish in a nose. Another hears a foxer siren and turns a fish into a harmless circle. Another commits to a torpedo run and meets a forward-thrown ring of steel. Set a pin on the chart for what comes next. Names like USS Bogue, USS Card, and later USS Guadalcanal will become shorthand inside BDU for a type of fight that the Atlantic never held, before a fight that moves to the boats instead of waiting for them. One of those names will even write a stranger line in June 1944, when a U-boat is not merely sunk, but taken. Before that, the daily grind, find, fix, finish will tear holes in the pack order of battle and exhaust the wrists that turn the Enigma rotors. On a CVE's windward edge, a young pilot watches the deck officer's wands and feels the ship rise under him. The radio ticks out a contact plot. He feeds power and rolls. The ocean that was once a hunting ground looks for the first time like a map with edges, and he is carrying the pencil. July 1943, North Atlantic and Bay of Biscay. USN hunter-killer groups centered on USS Bogue, USS Card, USS Core. RAF Coastal Command VLR patrols. Western Approaches Command ADEM Sir Max Horton. USN Atlantic Fleet ADEM Ernest J. King. Badu Großadmiral Karl Dönitz. Dawn over a grey sea. A boxy flight deck throws spray as it shoulders into wind. On the bridge, the air plot is a living thing: arcs, fuel ticks, contact codes, bearing lines. This is not a convoy screen hiding inside tight columns anymore. It is an outward punch, a hunter-killer group, one small carrier, a handful of destroyers and destroyer escorts. Enough. Industrial weight made this possible. Keels went down by the dozen in American yards, short, fast builds that turned into Casablanca-class escort carriers and the destroyer escorts to guard them. Liberty and Victory ships rolled off ways like boxcars. Air groups filled with aircraft the factories could replace faster than the sea could take them. Avengers with radar in their noses, wildcats with discipline in their turns. The lesson is simple, and brutal numbers give patience, and patience wins an ocean. Doctrine catches up to production. The group does not cling to a convoy's ribs unless ordered. It roams on intelligence, ultra-routing hints, HF-DF bearings dropped like nails, radar reports stitched into a picture by staff ashore, and watch teams afloat. When BDU lays a patrol line across a lane, the group takes a sweep, not through the middle, but along the edges where boats tend to gather and talk. When a milch cow broadcast is suspected, a box is drawn and flown until the fuel math says, stop, then flown a little longer. Time favours the side that can refuel, rearm, and fly again by nightfall. Tactics sharpen. A surface contact at night is not a victory lap for a U-boat anymore. A wildcat drops in first to pin guns, ready radio, steady radar, holding the plot when eyes lose it in scud. An Avenger arrives, heavy depth, bombs, rockets, sometimes FIDO for the diving wake, and the crew works the routine that has turned from experiment into muscle. If the boat lives to dive, escorts move to the datum and throw a forward ring of steel Hedgehog, while sonars keep tone and speed through the turn. The old blind arc over the stern is gone. The first miss does not mean a lost contact. The second pattern often lands where the boat must be, not where it was. The Germans feel the change first in transit. The Bay of Biscay, once a near-safe run between pens at Lorient Street, Nazaire, Brest, La Palisse, and the open Atlantic, becomes a daily gauntlet. Sunderlands and Wellingtons drag ley lights across whitecaps. Liberators push far enough to hand off to CVE patrol arcs. Boats are warned to stay down to surface only to charge to transmit in needles, not threads. A submerged boat is alive and largely blind. Patrol lines that were set with a draftsman's care now fray under pressure from directions that do not make sense to the men in the conning tower. Reports to BDU grow. Defensive enemy aircraft appear beyond expected. Cover contacts are brief. Attacks are sudden. The tone of the KTB entries shifts from confident to clipped. On the American side, the confidence is learned, not claimed. A CVE deck is unforgiving, short, wet, always moving, and there is no glamour in launching into sleet with a half-hour fuel margin to a cold search box. Flight crews make it work with checklists and repetition. Deck crews make it work with speed and stubbornness, rearm, refuel, respot again. Escort bridges practice the handoff drill, until bearings and ranges come out of their mouths without thought. Sonar teams learn to ignore the sea's lies and trust the trace when it holds. No gadget wins alone. The system wins by linking men, methods and machines into habits the ocean cannot break. Convoy commanders feel the pressure ease by inches. Contacts are met farther out. Attacks that do develop are broken sooner. When a pack forms, it finds air overhead that should not be there. When a boat takes its shot, the counter-shot arrives faster. In May 1943, the U-boat ledger turns ugly losses high enough that BDU must pull units back to rethink. Orders go out, transmit less, avoid risk, conserve crews. Initiative bleeds away. The wolf still bites weather, and chance still punish the careless. But the hunt no longer belongs to the night. Leadership frames the grind. From Derby House in Liverpool, Max Horton presses aggressive escort behavior, push out, hold, contact, pass off clean. From Washington, Ernest J. King backs the Atlantic build, and the CVE groups that make routing decisions stick. At Carnival, Donitz reads a pattern he does not like. Too many boats gone, too few freighters sunk for the cost. And he knows what that means for any plan to starve Britain or break the build-up for a cross-channel return. Strategy collapses through arithmetic long before headlines catch up. Names start to carry weight inside BDU. Staff notes Bogue card core shorthand for groups that arrive where math says they should not. Claims are checked, kills are disputed, fog remains, but the trend is unmistakable. The mocked short decks do not duel battleships or chase headlines. They erase probabilities. A U-boat that would have reached a convoy lane does not. A milch cow that would have kept 3 boats on station dies unseen. A patrol line set last week matches no ships this week. The pack becomes a set of singles, and singles die. Hold one frame for what lies ahead. A different CVE name will soon write a stranger line, not merely a sinking but a capture that will put Enigma rotors and documents on an American deck. Before that day, this day, the average one matters more. A plotted box flown on schedule. A bearing believed, a pattern thrown true. The turn has happened quietly under rain by crews who will never see their names in a headline. The Wolfpacks are not gone. They are being taken apart. On the flight deck, the wands dip. An Avenger rattles down the short run and lifts into a low sky. The carrier heels, turning back into wind. Somewhere ahead, a faint return waits on a scope. The group leans forward as if the whole ship is taking a step. 4 June 1944 west of Cape Verde. Task Group 22.3 USS Guadalcanal, CVE 60, Des Chatelaine Pillsbury, Pope Jenks Flaherty, Capt Daniel V, Gallery. U-505 KPTLT Harold Lang, a sonar whisper, a radar blink, then a hard turn to starboard. Chatelaine surges. Hedgehog leaves the bows in an oval crown, and a grey shape bursts to the surface, trailing white water. U-505. Men on the carrier's rail shout, and then remember to shut up. The destroyer Escort opens fire, short controlled. White flags, a boat still moving, an order no one expects to hear on a CVE deck boarding party away. Small boats claw across the chop, pistols out, lines cut, valves slammed, charges kicked overboard. A boarding officer drops into the control room and looks for the only enemy that matters now, the sea coming in. Pumps, plugs, a code room door, A bag, rotors, key sheets. The improbable becomes steel and paper on an American deck. Gallery turns his formation home with a prisoner submarine in tow aircraft, stacked and silent above a prize that will not be paraded until the war allows the secret. The capture is an outlier, but the curve behind it is the point. By mid-1944, the U-boat threat is reduced enough that the channel build-up goes forward at industrial scale. Convoys cross and land without the carnage of 1942. Escorts still work, crews still die, but the arithmetic has shifted. Packs cannot mass at will. Transit lanes bite back. Patrol lines turn into claims lists for hunter-killer groups and coastal command. When Allied armies go ashore in Normandy, the ocean behind them is not safe, it is managed. That is enough. The human cost remains. Machine rooms are hot. North Atlantic winters never forgive. A corvette runs down a contact in freezing rain and loses a man over the side, no time to turn. A U-boat crew waits in a dark forward compartment for a rescue ship that may not come. An Avenger breaks out of cloud with ice on the wings and a fuel gauge that lies. The ledger that shows one more submarine destroyed does not show who went under to make the datum or who held the bearing through the last turn. Victory at sea is made from small exhaustions repeated until the other side cannot keep up. What broke the Wolfpack was not one thing. It was linkage. Intelligence from U-559 to the bombs to quiet routing shifts removed surprise and gave choice. Technology, ASV Mark III. Ley lights, HFDF. Hedgehog squid FIDO turned search and strike into drills. Doctrine convoy discipline, aggressive escort handoffs, hunter-killer sweeps kept the initiative once found. Industry CVEs, destroyer escorts liberators. Liberties supplied the mass that allowed patience. Leadership Horton's push, King's backing staff work at Derby House, and the Admiralty held the line between bold and wasteful. None of it alone is enough. Together it moves the fight outward away from the convoy's ribs and holds it there. German adaptation never stops. New receivers hear shorter wavelengths. T-5GNATs chase screws. Snorkels arrive to cut surface time. Boats are ordered to live longer and risk less. The counter is already in motion. Foxer streamers, better radar sets, more aircraft, and an escort culture that treats every contact as solvable. BDU reads the totals by month and understands what they mean. Crews who once expected to hunt now expect to survive. Surviving does not starve an island or stop a build-up. Lessons carry forward. Intelligence must be used, not advertised and protected by plausible routines. Sensors change the geometry, but only if operators trust traces and leaders write tactics that fit physics. A head-throwing beats blind stern thunder when contact is fragile. Air over water turns a map into a grid that can be searched fast enough to make probabilities unfair. Small decks with the right payload can move strategy more than a big deck in the wrong place. Industry that produces enough allows doctrine to be patient, and patience is a weapon. The story belongs to names that rarely make posters. A sonar operator who keeps tone through a squall. A coder at Bletchley who finds the crib that makes a bombe run worth the power it draws. A deck crewman who drags a stuck chock clear so an Avenger can launch before the contact fades. A convoy commodore who holds his columns steady under fire because the drill says, hold. A U-boat captain who writes in his KTB that aircraft appeared in impossible places again. Small work repeated until the ocean bends. Germany taunted America's escort carriers slow, small, thin. The answer was not argument. It was a pattern flown a bearing believed a ring of charges thrown, while the echo stayed on the nose. 1 month, then the next. Black May showed the curve. The Bay of Biscay taught the transit. Task Group 22.3 wrote a strange footnote with a captured boat. And by summer 1944, the Atlantic, the grey-grinding indifferent Atlantic, had been made just manageable enough to deliver an army to France. Hear the last sounds. A CVE turns into wind, and the deck officers' wands come up. An Avenger claws off the bow and disappears into drizzle. A corvette's sonar room falls quiet, then a single crack somewhere deep says the pattern found its mark. A convoy holds course. A code room light goes out. The ocean lifts and falls as if nothing happened.